today we are going to talk about the cheapest way to buy real estate, specifically Airbnbs, because I only made $170,000 every single year as a doctor of pharmacy, my best year, and I feel broke in San Diego, California. I'm not going to debate that with you today. You can watch my last 10 videos about why I think $170,000 is a lot if you want to know my opinion, which I don't know if anyone does, but today we're going to be talking about my strategy to own Airbnbs and the cheapest way to own them, pretty much for zero down if you really wanted, or no money out of your pocket. The first thing you got to realize is there's many different ways to invest in real estate. And a lot of times people think you need 20% down to actually buy a house, or if you're in a house hack, like 3.5% down, when it's just not true. It's just that a lot of the times traditional real estate has been the only type of real estate investing that's been discussed. And that's what people know. Every time someone says, oh, it's so expensive to buy an investment home, you have to put 20% down on a home that's like $500,000 or $1 million in San Diego, California, where I live. But here's my personal strategy. You could take it or leave it, and you can call me dumb afterwards. But this is why I chose this strategy over. First of all, I had the option to buy real estate in San Diego, California, because I've been a real estate investor since 2018. I own 16 homes myself now. I've helped dozens of students actually get their own short-term rental and actually make six figures through their real estate deals. But if you look in San Diego, California, where I live, the appreciation rate is around like 4.5% on the actual county. And that's like in November 2024 when I last checked, or October 2024. If you look in other states like West Virginia or South Carolina or Ohio, if you look at the appreciation rates, it's actually more than San Diego. So there's always this false information that's saying like, hey, California gets the best appreciation, where it's actually the leverage and the home prices actually look so massive. So imagine this. You put 3.5% down on a home in California, that's $1 million. That's $35,000. But now it appreciates by 4%. You essentially made $40,000 on that $35,000. If you do the same thing in West Virginia, so say you put 3.5% down on a $200,000 home, sure, it's a fifth the price, so it's like $35,000 divided by 5, whatever that is. If you were to live here, let's just say that, and then you get 4% appreciation, you get 4% appreciation only on like $200,000. So that's the difference, and that's really why it actually looks so much more massive than it actually is in California. But here's a strategy to actually make it work, because the big issue that people run into with San Diego is, first, not everyone has $35,000 saved. And if they want to make an investment home, they can't do 3.5% down. That's only for people who live in their homes. So you're going to have to put, likely, you use like a vacation home loan if it's somewhere far enough from where you live. Or you can do 20% down traditional financing. Or if you get good enough, you can do subject to or seller financing to make the payments whatever you want to be. If you want to put $10,000 down, put $10,000 down. As long as you and the seller have a really good agreement and you can bypass the banks. Because that 20% down rule is only for banks. A lot of conventional loans, they require that amount because they have to follow certain guidelines. But what I do is actually move to these other states I specifically talk about, like West Virginia, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Ohio. And then I will put 10% vacation home loans on them. So on $200,000, 10%, that's only $20,000. In addition to that, what I've noticed, because I have rentals in San Diego and in these other states, my other homes in other states are actually more financially productive. So they make around like $70,000 to $120,000 every single year. My San Diego, California home makes like $80,000 every single year, which is good. But for 5 times the price, I don't think it's actually worth it. And then going into how I actually buy them with zero, like no money on my pocket. So like I talked about, hey, yeah, we need some money to like put down. But it's much easier to raise 10% down on a $200,000 home than it is to raise 10% down on a $1 million home for most people who are starting off. Unless you're like a millionaire already, then that's a little bit different. You can just call up your millionaire buddies and be like, hey, can I borrow $100,000? I want to put 10% down on a home in San Diego. But for us mortals, people who don't have just like $1 million sitting in their bank account, we can go to West Virginia. We can put 10% down on these $200,000 homes, so $20,000. And then even if we don't have it, we can go to like our friends or family or a partner and be like, hey, can I borrow this $20,000 to actually buy this house? You're gonna need like maybe $9,000 in closing costs. So raise more than just $20,000, but you get the point. You can ask someone else for money pay them like 12% interest on that smaller amount of loan. So if it's $30,000 whatever you borrow, you'll pay 12% on that. It ends up being $300 every single month. And because you know exactly what I just told you regarding short-term rentals in the East Coast, where they can make $70,000 to $120,000 every single year, 300 times 12 is totally doable. So that's $3,600 every single year, guys. So just take $3,600 from the $70,000 you just made. Of course, add up your other expenses like your PITI from the mortgage you're going to put on the home. So your secondary vacation home loan, plus any other expenses you have, such as like electric, gas, internet, lawn mowing, hot tub maintenance, pool maintenance, whatever else might pop up, like whatever you think, vacancy repairs, capital expenditures, the typical stuff. So you take that into account, and most of the times if you do this exactly right, the way I tell everyone to do it, you'll end up pulling in around like $30,000 every single year net after all expenses, because you're making $70,000 and you can afford all these other extra things. But in addition to that, because you're no money down, so normally you'd have to be in like California or something like that, and you get 4% on the asset. This time you have no money in the deal, and you're still getting 4% on $200,000, and you're cash flowing. So even if the market crashes and it goes down like 50%, which I don't think it's gonna happen, to be honest. Like, inventory is still way low. The U.S. is $35 trillion in debt, and they're going even faster. No matter who is in presidency, Republicans, Democrats, they're going into debt without like irregards like their political affiliation. So both parties are going to debt, and the only way they're going to fix it is honestly to send the market or economy into a collapse. So they're not going to do that. Like, they need it to keep on running, and that's why they always say we're targeting inflation, and that's good for them overall because they're going into too much debt, and by inflating that money, obviously, they don't have to pay as much. Like, their dollar is worth less. So that's how I would suggest buying a home, a really, really cheap home, how to basically buy a home the cheapest you possibly could. And if you're not able to use like private money loans, you can also do like credit card loans. I've done credit card loans. I had a 401k because I worked as a pharmacist that made $170,000, which is, again, not a lot if you watch my other videos. But I was able to save like $60,000 and take part of it and buy my fourth home that way, a 401k loan. I was also able to do, what's it called? It's like so I mentioned the credit card loan. There's actually like these special coupon offers where sometimes they'll send it to you, and they're like, oh, special rate, 8%. And they use your credit line to actually collateralize it. So if you have like a $50,000 credit line, you can actually use that. If you have a home or some sort of asset already, you can use something called a home equity line of credit to use that to actually fund your down payment. So again, you don't actually have to have any money out of your pocket, and that's how you buy a really cheap home. If you don't own a home yet, what you do is find the right business partner or partner by going to these meetups. Tell everyone that, hey, I know this strategy. I can do better than you can. Well, maybe not in those words because no one wants to be insulted. But just tell everyone that, hey, I know how to fund these real estate deals and I know where to buy them. I've done the research. I understand how to find a good deal, repair the good deal, get designers in there or design it myself, set up the furniture, hire property manager, hire photographers, hire cleaners, and manage it. And I can do that if you like lend me some money using your HELOC or something like that. That one's a little bit hard to convince. I'll tell you that if you've never done a deal before. But for me, I'm blessed to have done tons of deals now, so I'm considered well vetted. If you're lucky enough, also another strategy. If you're lucky enough, you have brothers and sisters who are also pretty successful, or parents who are pretty successful. You can also do gift funds, so you can buy a vacation home loan that way. And that's pretty. There's just technically what other ones have I missed? Oh, seller financing. That's a huge one. So seller financing. If you find a seller who is motivated to sell and they don't have any buyers, it's been on the market maybe 45 days or longer, but they want to keep the asking price, just to be like, hey, I see you own this house outright. Are you willing to give it to me at zero money down, but I'll pay you 9% interest? Or say they just want a monthly check and they don't want a gigantic tax bill, because if they sold it conventionally, they'd have to deal with taxes, versus like you do a seller finance deal, it's $200,000 and you pay $1,500 every single month to them, and they might be happy with that situation because they just want a consistent check coming in every month and they don't have to do any of the work anymore. And it's actually easier to close that way if you're not qualified. And for me, guys, that's the cheapest way to buy a home, especially if you want to live in California. All you do is buy one of these homes first, rent out one of your places, and use that money from the Airbnb that you buy in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, South Carolina, Florida, and actually pay off your rent that way. Or if you want to, you can house hack, do 0%, 3%, 3.5% down on a home here, and then use that money you make from the Airbnb over there and pay your mortgage off over here, or at least supplement it at least. And it can keep on stacking. So say if you're not as in a rush to buy a primary home, which is honestly a liability because you get 4% appreciation, but at the end of the day, there's money leaking out of your pocket versus these investment homes. They're actually making you money and putting money in your pocket, so you can either, again, buy a primary home and buy a liability if you want, or you can keep on stacking and buy like 5 until you reach financial freedom. And then hopefully like 5 times $70,000, I don't know what that is at the top of my head, 35,000, and then you keep half. Now you've made $170,000 and you've essentially replaced your pharmacist salary. Cheapest way to buy a home.